Hello and welcome. My name is Marc Blatstein, a physician of 30 years, and now I wanted to put my years of experience in healthcare and in the federal with the Federal Bureau of Prisons together to help you as you begin to face federal prison and sentencing. I'm located just outside of Washington, D.C. I'm not an attorney and cannot help legally, but there are things that you need to know, and this is why I'm doing this video, so you get to know about me. And when you begin to need or search for your attorney, there's questions to ask before you hire them. Do you feel they have compassion for you? Do they have experience practicing federal criminal defense in federal courts for cases like yours? And they want to check with their bar license. There's many, many more questions, but this was at the top of my list. The nuances of preparing for the pre-sentence interview, which includes your narrative, which is your story, your autobiography, your release plan, which is what your judge is going to want to know at sentencing, because he's going to ask you if you have anything to say. And then, like they said to me, the judge will say they don't want you back in their courtroom. And having that conversation with the judge is what's called your allocution. And these nuances that are not legal, but critical to your future, this is not part of education in law school. And so why should you hire me from all the other great experts that are out there? That's what I'm going to try and go through with you. In addition to my 30 years in patient care, I too was convicted of a felony in 2006 for wire fraud due to the billing for surgical supplies before my surgical suites were fully certified. As sole owner, it was my responsibility, and I accepted that I too had victims. Having been on both sides of the legal system, I found that I was not really a great client. In fact, I was a terrible client. I was in a daze the entire time, and therefore I was not able to participate. And I found myself unprepared for everything legal and prison related that followed. This lack of knowledge to prepare myself for what I was about to face, both in prison and after release, I lacked. I just didn't have. And I didn't know that when the Department of Justice knocked at my front door, let alone started asking questions to my patients, and they brought me their business card, that the Department of Justice had a 98% conviction rate by the time of the subpoena, the target letter, when you hear rumors. And so waiting maybe was not the best thing. Counsel and I didn't pay any attention at sentencing the first time when the judge said very clearly that he didn't want to see me back in his courtroom. Because after he said that, we asked if we could appeal my indictment. And yet when I went to my sentence at a freestanding federal prison camp, Pensacola in Florida, was released, then went to the appeal. Before we even finished speaking, the judge just said denied, and I had to go back to prison for another year, another day. And this time it was not to a freestanding prison camp, but a satellite prison camp. So the preparation knowledge that I lacked was completely front and center at that time, albeit my appeal regarding the Department of Justice 98% conviction rate. And I never did ask my attorney. I didn't even know to ask my attorney how many appeals or cases had he won. Because if I'm understanding correctly, it's like 0.2%. Understanding that there's a difference between a freestanding camp and a satellite camp. Most will tell you that basically they're the same, and I suppose they are, except that I had a different impression because I first went to a freestanding camp, no razor wire, lots of programs, lots of work. Went to the second one, and the satellite camp was adjacent to a higher secure facility. I'm not sure if the guards rotate, the correction staff rotate, and guards rotate between the camp and the higher secure facility, but in some places that they do. And so anytime that there is an adverse event in the area or at the higher secure facility, and that could be anything to fog or to a stabbing, everybody's locked down. And so I don't ever really recall being locked down at the freestanding camp. My experience with the Federal Bureau of Prisons healthcare system is that judges, for the most part, believe that the Federal Bureau of Prisons really has all aspects of your medical care covered. But that's being too generous. It's far from accurate. And I say that because I was incarcerated in 2006, but coming out of COVID, this laid bare through multiple Office of the Inspector General and newsprint or media reports of the amount of, I guess, lacking in the medical care and in general, because there's been staffing shortages where you have medical staff now subbing in as correction staff. You have teachers from the First Step Back programming that now are not teaching. They're subbing in as correction and guard type staff. And so this these two things result in delayed or denied medical care and potentially some of the First Step Back programs either having long waiting lists or just being shuttered. I was grateful upon my release from the second freestanding camp, or excuse me, satellite camp. In 2010, my license to practice was reinstated in full. But this followed my slow transition to working with those of you who have come headfirst into the American criminal justice system. My concentration, medical care, and its availability or lack thereof, providing you with all that I have learned. And really, it comes under the umbrella of preparation and knowledge. And it fills that gap where few in the criminal defense space are just not familiar because it's not taught in law school. And most judges haven't been to prison or lawyers. And so I focus on helping you prepare for your pre-sentence interview. There's a lot you have to do. I don't care what anyone says. It's not just very simple. You need to prepare in addition to collecting all your personal and biographical background material. If you have a medical issue, you need a complete medical file because at least that gives you a baseline when you enter prison. And should you need a second opinion in prison, there are two things that are true at the same time. One is that by having at least a baseline with your medical file there, you're somewhat protected. And two, once you go see a consult or have your consult with a medical specialist outside of the facility, which can take up to 3 years, that prison clinical director is not obligated to implement those doctor's recommendations. So by helping you prepare for your pre-sentence interview and the work that you need to do, sentencing here at the sentencing hearing, once the judge is able to read your personal narrative, if you wrote it, hopefully you did, at least working with me, you did, then you were able to have a conversation with the judge. And this conversation with the judge or allocution can begin to help change the perception of the judge just knowing who you are. And it answers the questions of the what and how you came to be standing in front of the court being sentenced for a felony conviction and what happened in your life. Knowledge is where you or how to prepare for prison because it's just not showing up. I mean, there are things you need to do for your family, for yourself, and what to expect day one when you enter, and the steps you can take inside to not get other charges and hopefully get a quicker or early release date. My efforts boil down to helping you mitigate and decrease your judge's thought regarding your sentence that would allow you hopefully to work towards an earlier release date. And lastly, if anyone tells you that there's promises or guarantees you anything, I would turn the other way because there's no one that can promise you what any judge will do on any given day because a judge, like anyone else, can get out of bed on the wrong side of the bed and you can be the brunt of that, the brunt of him having that bad start to his day. And no one can guarantee what the Federal Bureau of Prisons will do. So if you're looking for a mitigation expert, give me a call. There's no charge for the initial consultation, and we can take it from there. I hope you found this helpful, and I'm grateful for you listening to this video. Have a good day and be safe.